8 years had passed since my marriage, yet I was still deprived of the blessing of a child. When my husband, John, returned from abroad that year, John had only one sister. She was older than him and had been married 8 years before I entered his life. She had a 16-year-old son, Jerry. When she heard that John had come back to US, she decided to travel from California to Washington with her husband and son to surprise us. They never made it. Their car met with a terrible accident on the highway. The call came late at night. I still remember how John's hands trembled as he held the phone. His sister and brother-in-law both died on the spot. Jerry survived. The news shattered us. My husband collapsed under the weight of grief. I tried to stay strong for him, but inside I was breaking too. Jerry was brought to Washington after the funeral. He had lost both his parents in a single moment. He sat silently in our home, eyes hollow, face pale, as if the world had ended for him. For a month, our house felt like a graveyard. John eventually had to return abroad for work. Before leaving, he enrolled Jerry in one of the best schools in Washington and asked me to take care of him as my own child. I truly tried. I cooked his favorite meals, washed his clothes, made sure he went to school on time. I tried talking to him gently, hoping he would open up to me. I even wished he would see me as a mother. Perhaps through him, my own longing for motherhood would ease. But Jerry remained distant. He barely answered me. His tone was cold, sometimes irritated. I told myself he was grieving. One day, I entered his room without knocking and found him hurriedly ending a phone call. He looked nervous. Too nervous. Later that night, when he was asleep, I checked his phone. What I saw made my heart sink. There were explicit videos and inappropriate images saved in his gallery. I felt anger, disappointment, and shame all at once. He was only 16. I took his phone away. The next day, when he asked for it, I scolded him harshly. I told him I would inform his uncle about the filth he had been watching. The way he looked at me then, it chilled me. His eyes were not of a frightened child. They were filled with hatred. After that, his behavior worsened. He stayed out late. He made messes deliberately. He criticized my cooking. He demanded money. I endured it all, thinking he was a troubled teenager. One night, I woke up thirsty and walked into the lounge. Jerry was sitting there, watching an inappropriate movie with the volume muted. A cigarette burned between his fingers. Something inside me snapped. I switched off the television and slapped him hard across the face. I snatched the cigarette and threw it away. But before I could step back, he grabbed my arms tightly. His grip was strong, too strong. His eyes burned with fury. "If you ever raise your hand on me again," he whispered through clenched teeth, "you will regret it." I felt fear for the first time. I told John everything over the phone. He promised to speak to Jerry. The next day, after talking to his uncle, Jerry's behavior changed dramatically. He apologized. He began helping around the house. He spoke politely. I felt relieved. I thought the storm had passed. But something about him felt different. His gaze lingered on me longer than it should. He began complimenting my appearance. Once, while I was making tea, he covered my eyes from behind playfully. I screamed in shock. He laughed. "I care about you," he said casually. "You're my momani." His words unsettled me. He began bringing me juice at night, snacks from the market, sweets he fed me with his own hands. Soon after consuming them, I would feel dizzy, heavy. Sleep would take over quickly. In the mornings, I sometimes woke up feeling strange, my hair undone, my body aching, but I blamed it on stress. Until the day I woke up and found him sleeping beside me. My blood froze. He claimed he had been scared and came into my room. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to deny the fear forming inside me. A month later, I fell ill. Constant nausea. Weakness. I went to a doctor. The words she spoke shattered my world. "You are pregnant." I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. I knew instantly. I remembered the juice, the sweets, the dizziness, the nights of deep, unnatural sleep. He had drugged me. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He smiled. "This is the answer to the slap you gave me," he said coldly. "You treated me like a child. I'm not a child." I slapped him again, but this time John was standing at the door. He had returned unexpectedly. What followed was chaos. John beat Jerry in rage. I had never seen him so furious. The boy was sent away to a hostel the next morning. John apologized to me over and over. He blamed himself for leaving me alone. When John told me he had arranged everything with the doctor, I nodded silently. I acted as if I agreed. I let him believe that I would end the pregnancy. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I placed my trembling hand over my stomach and felt something I had never felt before, Not fear, not shame, but a strange, painful attachment. For 8 years, I had prayed for a child. For 8 years, I had cried quietly after every medical report that said the same thing. Nothing was wrong, yet nothing was happening. And now, life was growing inside me. Yes, the way it happened was horrific. Yes, it was born from betrayal and manipulation. But the life inside me, it was innocent. Completely innocent. The next morning, I told John I needed some time before going to the hospital. I told him I wasn't emotionally ready. He respected that. A few days later, I pretended the procedure had been done. I told him the doctor said everything was cleared. I even forced myself to cry in front of him, and with that lie, I began carrying the truth alone. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. I wore loose clothes, I avoided gatherings. I told John I was dealing with hormonal imbalance and stress. Since he was still travelling back and forth for work, it became easier to hide my growing belly. I visited a different doctor in another area, one who didn't know our family. I paid in cash. I kept no records at home. Every appointment felt like I was living 2 lives at once. Sometimes guilt crushed me, not because of the child, but because I was lying to my husband. John was trying so hard to fix what had been broken, and here I was, building another secret. But every time I felt the baby move, something inside me healed. For the first time in my life, I felt like a mother. When my time came, I told John I was going to stay with a distant relative for a few weeks to recover emotionally. Instead, I went to a small private maternity clinic in another city. I endured the pain alone, no family, no husband holding my hand. But when I heard that first cry, my world changed. They placed my baby in my arms, a tiny, warm, breathing miracle. I cried uncontrollably, not from sorrow this time, but from something pure and overwhelming. I had become a mother. In that moment, the past didn't disappear, but it lost its power over me. After a few weeks, I returned home. I told John that during my stay away, I had visited an orphanage. I told him I couldn't ignore the emptiness in my heart anymore. I told him I wanted to adopt. At first, he was shocked. Then I showed him the baby. I told him the mother had abandoned the child. I told him I felt connected the moment I saw those eyes. I begged him to let us give this baby a home. John looked at the child for a long time. I saw something shift in his expression. Maybe it was longing. Maybe it was regret for the years we had waited. Maybe it was love forming silently. He agreed. He held the baby in his arms, our baby, and tears filled his eyes. I guess God finally answered our prayers, he whispered. And in that moment I felt both relief and heartbreak. Relief that my child would grow up loved. Heartbreak that the truth would forever live inside me alone. Years have passed now. John is a devoted father. He adores our child. He sees his own reflection in that little smile. And sometimes when I watch them together, guilt tries to creep in. But then I remind myself of something important. This child is not a symbol of what happened. This child is a symbol of survival. I chose not to let darkness decide the fate of an innocent life. I chose motherhood when life tried to break me. I chose love where revenge had once stood. Yes, I carry a secret. Yes, I live with a truth no one else knows. But when my child calls me Mama and wraps tiny arms around my neck, I know one thing with certainty. Out of the worst chapter of my life, I wrote the most beautiful one. And sometimes, strength means carrying both pain and love in the same heart without letting either destroy you.